This is how to build every class in Trove. I know the video is long, so feel free to skip around in the video timeline if you want to see a specific class. I could have just released a video on each class one at a time, but that's pretty lame. There is a lot of information on every class, talking about how to build, craft, and use the characters. Also, a lot of this video is going to be very repetitive with what I have to say because most of these classes are going to be built very similarly. Another thing I'll mention is that if you see an ally that you think is better, or maybe there's a certain stat combination on your gear or whatever the case may be, go ahead and change it. This video is more of like a guide / reference if you don't know how to play or build the character. Think of it as like a little foundation and you can change things to your liking later. Now a couple things to note, chaos cores and flux. A lot of these characters will need chaos cores and flux. I don't talk about that in the video, but you don't really need too many of them to even craft the class, so it's not really worth talking about, but I do have guides talking about these. So I'm just going to leave a link to those in the description down below so you can check that out. Another thing I'll drop is a link with a handy spreadsheet related to the gear and gems. Also in this video you'll hear things like 90414 or 90315. This is just the boost combination for your gems, which you can check out at the Gem Forge. And this isn't including your cosmic gems because all of your boosts will be going into light. Unless a major change happens in the future, then you just want to stick to light for now. But the first two numbers, 90, are for your empower gems. 9, which is the boost that go into your physical or magic damage, depending on your class, and then the 0 is your crit damage. Then the other two, 315, is for your lesser gems. 3 boosts is going to be going into your physical or magic damage, depending on the class, then the 15 is to the crit damage. Now by all means, you don't have to do this at all. This is just if you want to go for the max possible damage for your class, but as long as you don't have any boost into critical hits, and all of your cosmics have every boost into lights, then you'll be fine. I'll leave a link for that in the description down below if you are curious. And lastly, I do want to say massive shoutouts to Sqze for helping me make this video for you guys. He's going to be showing you guys how to build each character, and he goes over a lot of information about these classes that I didn't even know about. I'm going to leave a link to his Twitch channel in the description down below, so feel free to check him out, give him a follow, and if you ever do see him around, be sure to say thank you. Also want to say shoutouts to MrVash for providing Lunar Lancer gameplay. You'll see that towards the Lunar Lancer section, but huge shoutouts to you, Vash. Be sure to say thank you to him as well. I don't really have anything to shout out for him, but I do appreciate it, so shoutouts to you. And with all of that out of the way, let's begin. Now, starting things off with Ice Age. This is a great all-around class. You can farm with him if you can keep up with his ultimate. Just use your Chronomatic to cycle through his ultimate. It is a little bit tricky, but you could do that. And as far as damage goes, Ice Age really pops off when there's groups of enemies. You'll want to use Ice Age in delves because when you gather groups of enemies, you can use your primary fire and you'll just do a ton of damage. Just make sure to get Ice Age's Clash Gem ability. But I will say this, there's a cool combo you can do with him in delves. You can gather enemies by using your depth charges to keep aggro on you. You can use your vacuum, freeze them, and then start shooting. Basically, they just stay there in the center. So if you are able to one-shot or get pretty close to it, you'll do a ton of damage. And if you don't do much damage at all, then they might go flying in different directions, mainly just because of the knockback. But long story short, you can use Ice Age just about anywhere. Next up, we got Ice Age. I already went over the glacial shards for a different character, but basically just go over here to the permafrost area. They are sometimes a little bit hard to see, but you can find them on the surface. You can find them in the caves, but you're not going to find too many of them. So keep looking and hopefully you can find the amount that you need. Next up, for the blank scrolls, you can find recipe dungeons like this. You can find them in just about any adventure world. So there's these recipes over here, so you can complete that. It's like a regular dungeon. You can find them in just about any adventure world, and they're a little bit tougher than your traditional enemy from a dungeon, so if you do struggle, then be careful, but just break the box right there and you can get your Fae recipe, and just take it over here to the loot collector, loot collect that, and you can get your blank scroll. Other methods for this is getting recipes that you already have, or maybe that you don't have already, and then just take it to the loot collector. An example would be from bauble pods. If you can get those gardening recipes, you can take it over here to the loot collector, or you can just buy blank scrolls from the marketplace. Next up, for the bottles, go over here to the desert frontier, and you can find a bunch of bottles just kind of lying around. So just keep on looking and you'll find a bunch that you can farm, and eventually you'll have enough to craft the Ice Age, or you can just buy them from the market.
Now we can see that I only use this guy for damage. I don't use him for farming and whatnot, so I have stability here, making me not get knocked around too much. So that's what I use. I use critical damage, attack speed, critical damage, movement speed, and critical damage, magic damage, and attack speed once again. Now, the reason I don't have 300% here is because my Berserk Battler will actually push me over 300%. It will actually get me when I'm attacking another 40%. So I'll have up to 326% attack speed when I attack stuff. Ideal if you want to have the most optimal setup so you can have more movement speed here. My banner I use movement speed, and the ally is Starry Skyfire. Starry Skyfire makes me less cooldown here when so I can use my ult more optimally. Emblems I use Chromatic and Arcane because I use this guy for 4 bossing. It just allows me to spam my 2 ability here. For the ring effects here, I have Chill Out and Nice Ice Baby. I kind of did an oopsie here and I put As Cold as Ice by mistake. But Chill Out would be the most ideal for damage, and the stat here you would ideally want energy regen. You know, you never have to worry about energy, ideally. Anyways, now Chill Out makes it so that when you're below 5% HP or 10% or whatever it is, that an ultimate triggers, not your actual ultimate. You can basically stack that ultimate with your actual ultimate. So you can, if let's pretend there's enemies here, right? You can sit in the enemies and have Deathifying on. So once they hit you, you can just fly up, trigger your ultimate, and jump here and attack. And that would put your thing up to around 260, 250, around there. You would get basically double damage outputs from that, which is ideal. It's really good for killing enemies fast and whatnot. And for the food, I use premium fish food. You could also use the Sapphire Rune if you wanted to. I don't personally. You can. Doesn't matter at all, in my opinion. And then for the gems here, I use Pyrodisc and Explosive Epilogue for all my classes, actually. The class gem here. So I use a 90414 personally. I'll just skim over the gems here really quickly. And I use Berserk Battler. If we want to be absolutely like perfect here, we would use 90315, which is slightly more damage, but you're never gonna notice a difference. It's around 4,000 difference. You wouldn't notice a difference. When I made my Ice Age, the optimal was 414. Now it's changed. It kind of goes back and forth a little bit, but yeah, all my classes, as you will see, is 414. So use whatever you want. Most optimal is 315. Use whatever you want, right?
Going over to the Solarion, Solarion is the best at dealing a ton of damage. When you use your ultimate, it has a little AoE ring effect, and that does a ton of damage as long as you keep it up. And by keeping it up, you just have to use your Flasks to activate the Zealous emblem. And the nice thing about Solarion is that the longer you keep it up, the damage also increases. Now, it does reach its max. Once you get him up there, it'll be doing way more damage. Although I would be careful about the knockback that it causes. He's not the best at farming, but you can use him in just about anywhere. Ships, towers, delves, D15 5 farms. Just make sure you're in close quarters because that's when you're going to be dealing the most damage. Now to craft Solarion, this is going to be pretty tricky. I recommend just buying the class with credits because honestly crafting them is just not worth it at all. Sometimes the packs go on sale so you can buy them then if you have the credits. But he is super annoying to farm, but I guess I'll just go ahead and show you guys how to do it anyway. So you want to go over here to the Swindered Uplands workbench. You can find the same thing if you go over here to Swindered Uplands, just in the spawn area. Or you might have a club that has this, or if you don't, then I can invite you guys to Laezaria. So go over here to the Solarion tab. So you're going to need these 3 things to craft it, and the first thing is going to be the Phoenix Soul. So for most of the resources you can just find in the Swindered Uplands area, I recommend just going to D14 because there is one particular thing called a Phoenix Mote. At least I've only ever gotten it from D14. So one of them is going to be these things that you can find on the ground. There is a tome for that in the same bench that we looked at for Solarion. So you will want to go around and getting these irradiant power cells. Next one is the Phoenix Motes. So this is your 5-star dungeon. As you can see, it's a little bit different than the 3-star dungeon. It looks a little bit different. You can do those. It acts in like waves. It's pretty complicated. I can show you guys how to do it from a tower, but the more you play this game, you'll figure out how to do ships. Ships are going to be way better. But what you want to do is go over here to this lower portion and activate this. There's going to be some objectives like a 5-star dungeon. So just kind of look all around and see if you can complete all 5 of the objectives within the time limit. And once you finish it, you want to go back to the bottom area to activate this. And now every prime number, you have to fight a boss. And this is where you get the Phoenix Motes. So you want to fight the boss. You'll need a ton of light. This is pretty ridiculous. There's a very small chance you can get a Phoenix Mote from the boss. I didn't get one there. Usually on average, I'll get 1 per tower or 1 per ship. Sometimes I don't even get 1. The odds are pretty low, but anyway, that's how you get the Phoenix Motes. And one thing I forgot to mention about those 5-star dungeons is that once you get to wave 70, so for that one, I recommend just going over to D13 and just farm ships. You can do /join ship, just like that. Find a group, try to get to wave 70, and then stay in the ship until the timer goes out, and you can get the Sunder charged crystals that way. The next resource is the ore that you're going to find on the surface. So as you can see, if we mine these, we can get an Irradian ore right over there. So just keep doing that and you can get the ore portion done that way. And then for the Radiant Souls, you just want to keep farming Sundered Uplands, get trophies, and just compost them. It's super annoying, and that's how you get that part of the resource. Or you can just buy the Radiant Souls on the marketplace. Honestly, this entire process is just a mess. But this is all how to get the Phoenix Soul portion of this. Next is the Sunbeamer, and the Ashen Soul is basically the same thing. You're going to farm dungeons in the underneath area this time, and any trophies you get from this area you want to compost, and you can get the soul. The Ashfern Sporlings are going to be these plants that you can find just kind of all around there. It's not going to be that difficult. The Ember Slag ore is just going to be the ore that you can find on the ground there. There isn't like too many of them around, but as you can see, there's some over there in this section. And just like on the above, you're going to find these things on the surface, but you're not going to find them as commonly. And that's just going to be for the unnatural device. So they're very uncommon. I don't really see too many down here. I had to switch to Shadow Hunter to actually try to find them a little bit quicker, and I didn't even find that many. And the final thing you need is going to be the Primal Gem Shards. Now, to even get one of these, you have to have 4 sparks of each elemental type. And to even get the sparks, you need to have 30,000 gem dust. And the easiest way to do this is level up a crystal gem to 25 and then just loot collect it. So the super annoying thing about these is that you need 45 to craft the Sunbeam container. And with the 45, then you can go over here to Solarion. You'll have these 2 resources. You'll have to do the same thing again to get the Primal Gem Shards. So overall, just don't do this. Just don't craft them. I recommend just buying the class from the store because it's honestly not worth your time. But just in case if you want to, that's how you do it.
And then for the gear here, I use this guy for bossing, so I have stability on both my pieces. And I have movement speed. On this guy, I have 1 piece with attack speed and the rest with movement speed and critical damage. The reason for that is once again that attack speed, you will get 40% extra with this, so when it actually triggers, it will go up to 319 movement speed here. The ally, Scorpius, and the emblems, I use Silius emblem. You could also use Trailblazing, not really. Silius, just stick with Silius, honestly. It's the most ideal one. There are some other ones that you can use if you're in a group, like Energizing, that gives 20% energy. If you're a bunch of Solarians, you can all use this and give each other energy. And then some other ones, half the other Solarians would use Chromatic if you want max efficiency on, but that requires a lot of team play. For solo play, just all the way through Silius. Ring effect, you would use Prismatic Chain. It makes it so that your bird here also has a little bubble burst of damage here. Very, very ideal. And I use Zephyr Rune on this guy, personally. I don't really use him for anything other than delves, so that's why I use this. It basically never breaks. It's really good because it only breaks when you take damage from acid. So as long as you don't sit in acid, it's never gonna break. You kind of have to be a little bit careful though. I've had these 16 pieces. I've never broken them. So it's really good to have a permanent or a half permanent anyways sort of food here that you can use. And the reason I use this guy is because of the extra flask capacity. All the other classes I use Solarion for extra damage. Same setup here. Pyrodisc, Explosive Epilogue. I'll move over to gems real quick. 90414. Just pause when you want to. Berserk Battler once again, checking him out on the thing. We will see once again that it's 315, that's the most ideal. You're never gonna notice the difference between this coefficients, you're just not. When I built this guy as well, the ideal was 414. It's changed since, but yeah, it's kinda whatever.
Now going over to Shadow Hunter, this is another super popular class. He's very fast, does decent damage, and does very well overall. You can shoot through walls, making it easier to finish dungeons. Shadow Hunter has a unique thing where if you're fighting enemies, you can get arrows above your head. Get all 5 and use your Flasks to trigger the martial emblem and activate your M2, whatever that is on console, and the arrows will travel to the nearest enemy and just explode. 5 is the max, you can do it less than 5, but you just won't do as much damage that way. One little trick that I'll talk about is you can use your stun ability on cursed skulls or monoliths, and that'll just either one-shot them if you do the damage, or it'll do a ton of damage. You can also use your Flask to activate the martial emblem, which increases your physical damage, so just in case you can't one-shot, you can pair it with that. And the stun ability can go through lag, it's kind of 50-50. Anyway, you can use this class anywhere. He's very good at doing pretty much everything. One thing I'll say is make sure to get his class gem, otherwise he won't be as fun. Now for Shadow Hunter, you're going to want to get some Radiant Shards, and to get those you want to go over here to Radiant Ruins. And you can find a bunch of these enemies just kind of off in this area of the map, not here because these are the cornerstones. So you want to go around here. There's also dungeons. I'll go over that in just a second. But if you fight one of these enemies, you'll get some Radiant Shards. Sometimes they give you a box. You can open the box to get 100. And it's honestly easier to just find the enemies like that instead of just doing the dungeon. The dungeon does work, but the thing about these is that you have to fight these and you just get 1 per. Just ignore the 67. As you can see, it's only going up by 1. So you're not really going to be getting that much from here compared to the actual enemies themselves. And before I leave this area, there is the crystallized clouds, this pink ore over here. They do take a couple hits with the regular bombs, so be on the lookout for that. But you're going to find these everywhere, and there is a dragon that comes with it. So you can just farm that passively on the side as well. Now for the Somber Souls, you want to go over here to the Cursed Veil area. Just break a vein of ore and you can maybe just see these kind of hiding inside. And that's what it looks like. You just want to break that. And as you can see, there's one over here in the cave. So you can just mine them just like that. But they are kind of hard to find, so just keep on breaking the ore just like this, and maybe you can find one on the inside.
For Shadow Hunter, I use this guy for farming. Attack speed is useless, so I use movement speed and critical damage on all my pieces here. The only one that's different is my face, which I use physical damage on. And the ally, once again, is Scorpius. And the emblems, I use Trailblazing and Martial Emblem. You could also use something like Chronomatic or Celius if you want more to use your one ability more often. This would be if you want to use your alt or whatnot. For farming, I'd use Trailblazing. The reason I use this flask is because it makes it so that you get your flask back. You could use some other flasks, but for farming, I'd stick with this. Ring effect, tactical seekers would be the best. It's the best for damage anyways. It's kind of useless a little bit, but if you at a boss, you can use your ultimate here, and it will pop out, not your one ability, but your M2 ability. It plops little seekers out at whatever you hit. It's really good for damage, but I don't use this guy for damage personally. It's not, it can't really compare with some of the other ones, so that's why. Checking out the gems here, we can see that I use Explosive Epilogue, Pyrodisc, and I'll just skim through them real quick. So yeah, I use 414 on this guy as well. So we can see that once again, the most optimal is 90315. Once again, you're never gonna notice a difference here. It's gonna be the same. Do what you want, really. I use 414 personally, because it's never gonna change the outcome of how fast I can kill something. If you want the absolute most efficient, most optimal, yada yada, use 315. I have 414 because I built this guy when 414 was the max, and I am just too lazy to change them all. The reason I have energy regen on my ring here is so I can use I can spam 1 here. When I farm, it's really good for crowd control. For skulls, I can just spam this and it will kill everything. Otherwise, you need to put it on your weapon.
Moving over to Tomb Raiser. I feel like this is an underrated class with how good it actually is. Maybe not so good for boss fights, but you can clear delve rooms very easily. And that's assuming you can do max damage, or not max damage, but like pretty close to a lot of damage. All you have to do is spam your minions, which is pretty much every ability you have, and just rush through the delves. He's not super amazing in farming adventure worlds compared to other classes that just outspeed him, and Tomb Raiser doesn't do a ton of damage to bosses at all, but he's still pretty decent. If you're brand new to the game and don't do enough damage, you can spawn a bunch of your minions and just go around them so the boss will attack them and not you. It'll take a little bit longer to actually fight stuff, but it is an option. Either way, this is a great class for farming and delves. To craft them, what you want to do is go to recipe dungeons. You can literally just find them anywhere. I went to Fae Forest. As you can see, there's a recipe right over here. So we're just going to go down here, and the bosses are going to be a little bit stronger, but if you can one-shot, they're not too bad. Break the chest, and then just take it over here to a loot collector. You can get a blank scroll that way. And if you can find other things, like the standard block recipe, for example, or you can maybe craft these from the rune crafting bench, then you can take it over here to the loot collector and just get the blank scrolls that way, or just buy them from the marketplace. Next up for the bleach bones, just go over here to the Dragonfire Peaks, and you'll find bleach bones pretty much everywhere.
Same thing I usually have for farming. It's good to have movement speed on this guy. He doesn't use attack speed, so you can use movement speed, critical damage. He's really good for crowd control, clearing out enemies in delves and whatnot. So yeah, that's the reason I have that. And movement speed on my banner as well, of course. Same thing here, I use Starry Skyfire. You could also use Orcheon if you want to, at least for this guy. Ideal, maybe, if you want the extra movement speed. I don't really care that much. If you want to use it for farming, then use Orcheon. For damage, use Starry Skyfire here. The ring effect, most ideal is probably energy regen. Honestly, I don't have that. I don't really care that much. It doesn't change too much. And then the ring effect, ideally you would use Skelly Bigly Split, which makes it when you use your M2, some of these can spawn big. Better damage. That's basically it. And for the gems, once again, Explosive Epilogue, Pyrodisc, and Berserk Battler. 90414 once again. Moving over to the spreadsheet. The most ideal is 315. do whatever you want, honestly. It doesn't really matter what you do. You're never gonna notice the difference, basically.
Next up, we got the Draco. So this is going to be very similar to the Tomb Raiser, but this class does more damage. You can also farm with Draco, but it isn't that fast compared to other classes. But he does have something unique about him. If you pair him with Lava, he actually gets a speed boost. And pretty much the main thing you want to do with Draco is spam your minions, use your ultimate to turn into a dragon, and you can do a ton of damage that way. And a cool useless thing that you can do with Draco is you can ride around on your mounts, even in your dragon form. So I guess in a way you can say he's a better Dino Tamer, but I don't know if that interests you guys. Either way, the moment you hop off your mount, depending on how long you've been in your ultimate form, the dragon will just go away and you'll have to wait on your cooldown to get it back up again. Either way, this class is great for farming, for ships, for delves, and he's pretty decent for bosses. Moving over to Draco, so we just talked about the bleach bones, you'll get them in the Dragonfire Peaks area. So as you can see, there's one over here, and there's another one over there. I'm just kind of lazy to go get that one. And the other one is Primordial Flames. So what you want to do is just hover around Dragonfire Peaks. You'll find them on the surface, so you can mine them there. Or you can go into the caves. You can just find a cave system. It's not going to be grouped up in a huge bunch, but you can just pick them up like that. And there's some more over there. So as you can see, there isn't really too many together, but you can just get them that way.
So for my Draco, I use this guy for farming as well, but I use him mostly for clearing ships, actually. He's very good for clearing ships. So I have stability on all my pieces here. The mask, or the face rather, is kind of hard to get stability on. It's ideally you would want max damage. The reason I have stability on my second stat is because when Gearcraftr came out, then there was a bug that allowed you to get second stats on your first or third slot. That's the reason I have stability. Impossible to get nowadays, but I have stability on all my pieces, and magic damage, critical damage on the other ones here. So, and subclass is Solarion, of course. For the ring here, no ring effect is really good for Draco. It's kind of whatever. I don't use a ring effect personally. You could. Personally, I have an Ice Age ring on this guy. Would chill out a nice ice baby. Just because I had it extra, so I just put it on this guy. Energy regen is what you want. It allows you to spam your one ability, and you don't need to put it on your gun or on your weapon here either because of that. Ideally, probably you would have Silius or a Sapphire rune here on the food. So that's why I have that, and I have Chronomatic. If you wanted to farm, you could use Trailblazing. I have Chronomatic because it allows me to use my 2 ability more. He's really good for ships. You can just sit here and just spam 1 here, and those little enemies will trigger the skull. It's the only minion class that can activate the skull with their minion attack, so you don't really need to do anything other than just click 1. That's good for mini bosses anyways. So yeah, that's why I have that. And for the gems here, I have Pyrodisc and Explosive Epilogue. I'll just skim through them real quick. 90, 414 once again, and the most ideal would also once again be 315 here.
Moving on to the Revenant. Now this is supposed to be a tank class technically, but he's not. He's a DPS, and you can also farm with him. And with Rev, you can surprisingly speed farm with him. He's not super amazing against Leviathans and long boss fights either, because when you want to deal damage, you basically just use your primary fire, which is fine. But then you have to be up close, and the issue is the spikes that deal damage to you, plus the enemies attacking you. So overall, the life leech that the spikes do isn't enough for long boss fights. So if you're fighting tough enemies, it's not the most ideal for Rev. Rev is amazing to use if you can one-shot or get pretty close to a one-shot. And the other thing I want to mention is his ultimate. It deals damage and also pulls enemies in. You're probably not going to use that for farming, but if you want to gather enemies in delves, or if you're in a cursed skull, or whatever the case may be, then he can do just that for you. Either way, this is a great farming class if you want to try him out. Next up, we got the Revenant here. So for bleach bones, you want to go over here to Dragonfire Peaks, and you can find a bunch of bleach bone just kind of lying around the surface. So just collect a bunch of those. Now moving over to Somber Souls, you want to go over here to the Cursed Veil area. And if you break a vein of ore, there's a chance you can find the Somber Souls here. They're kind of annoying to farm and find. You can find them connected like this. Sometimes you have to actually break the... What the heck just happened? You have to break this, and then sometimes you can see it underneath or just like inside the vein or something like that. So they are kind of hard to find, but if you kind of just do this, you might find one there, you might not. Then you just kind of go to the next vein. As you can see, there's one there. So you just mine it and move on to the next. Next up, we got the Wild Cupcakes. So you want to go over here to Kendoria, and you can just find a bunch of cupcakes on the surface, so you can just mine them like that.
I use Magic Find because I use this guy for farming, and I use personally Vampirion on this guy actually because I like the extra speed. You could also use Berserk Battler. You'll never go wrong with Berserk Battler. A little bit extra damage, and for the ring effect, let's just start by that. Speed spears, the way to go for this guy. That would be the most ideal thing here. It allows you to move at full speed when you have your one ability open. Otherwise, it would be slower. Speedy spears is what you want for the ring effect. And for all the other things, I have attack speed and movement speed here. Sorry. Ally, once again, Scorpius. And 414 for this guy as well, actually. So let's move over them real quick. That's what I have. Most ideal, once again, 315. You're never gonna notice the difference. There's really no point in trying to go more attack speed, but you could also. The reason that I'm missing some coefficients on this guy is because I don't have all on critical damage. I have max magic. I have max movement speed instead. Max movement speed is, in my opinion, the best you can go with this guy because it's a farming class. You could change this out for some other things, but honestly, trailblazing, it's a farming class. You know, you shouldn't use this guy for bossing. Keep him from farming, and farming is trailblazing. And that's also why I have conjures here.
Moving over to the Candy Barb. So this class is going to be a tank. And for most people, that is. Some people actually farm with them, which you could do that, but a lot of people just use them in delves because of one specific ability. You can pull in enemies and have somebody else shoot those enemies as you keep them in. If you did want to farm with them, you can use the spin to win ring ability, which gives you additional movement speed whenever you spin, obviously. But compared to the other classes, he just doesn't compete that well. I do have my Clash Gem on him where it makes it so I can group up enemies while I hold down my Sugar Crash ability, which is my M5. I changed my keybinds. Basically just give Candy Barb movement speed and HP. You can also use them in D15 5 farms to group up those enemies at the skulls, since, you know, they like to scatter around. Yeah, with this class, you have to be pretty close to deal damage. He's not super amazing at damage, but you could just use him for farming, you can use him for ships, and you can use him for delves. You'll need some wild cupcakes. So basically, with wild cupcakes, you can go over to Candoria, and you can just try to find them like here. You're not going to find a bunch together, so it's just going to be one. And if you kind of look around in the general area, you can try to find a bunch of them. So on Tuesdays, you can farm them and you'll get a little bit of a bonus. But you can just find them all over Candoria, so they're not too terrible to farm. As you can see, there's another one right over here. So just look around the area. I know you'll find them. And then moving over to the Glacial Shard portion, so you want to go over to Permafrost, and you could find them on the surface. They're a little bit hard to see. You can also find them in caves. And I'm just going to go over to this cave over here. As you can see, we have some Glacial Shards over here. They don't really come in a huge group or anything like that, so that's a bit annoying. So yeah, you'll just have to keep on looking around. They're pretty annoying. They're also kind of hard to see, especially on the surface area. But I do believe in you guys. Just keep on searching. I know you can find them.
Moving over to my Candy Barb here. Now, you can see that right away. It's not really the most efficient guy in the world. It's not gonna do lots of damage. The thing that he will do a lot of, though, is keeping you safe, because he's almost rocking 90 million HP. It's purely an HP guy, and the reason I say that, I use this guy for holding enemies because he can suck them in, right? That's also the reason I use Starfire Scuttler here. It's because it gives me 10 flask capacity. Previously it used to be Candy Corpion, which used to be the best one. But they released this one recently that gives you 10 flask capacity, which is actually insane. So I usually use max flask capacity. This guy has a chance to not consume a charge, so that's good, and restores all the energy. The gear here for my HP build anyways, I use max health and movement speed and stability on all here. So I have max health here, max health, and stability on all my pieces and movement speed. So that's why I can get so much. It's not the most ideal thing here in the world. You wouldn't really want to use Mirrored Mojo or Stunburst, because it has a chance to activate the boss. The reason you would use this, it would be in delves, honestly. That's what I use him for. If you want even more, you could plop this guy on, and it's a stability and maximum health ring, and the banner is also max health and flask capacity and movement speed. You know, do what you want with that. If you want more, I use that. The reason I use this is because it gives me energy regen. Now, if you don't want to have, if you want a speedy guy, this guy is really fast for farming, so you could also use him for that. Then the ring effect would be spin to win with energy regen, just this ring that I have here. 414 once again. The setup would be very similar to the Lunar Lancer build here, which would be max movement speed and attack speed going up to less than 300, but around 300, as close as you can get anyways, or above around 300 anyways. It's not really gonna matter. And for the gem, you would use Vampirion. Spin to win makes it so that you go faster when you get movement speed increase when you spin. So you spin, And yeah, that's it. Stay on the ground so you can permanently spend, and you get a bunch of movement speed. So that would be the most ideal thing you can have on this guy. If you wanted an even more tankier tank, then you could put this on instead. The Freerange here, because it gives you 3 flask capacity rather than 1. So I can get all the way up to 46 flasks. And if you want even more, you could change your star shards to be more flask capacity here. Really, really ideal for holding enemies, and that's just what I use him for, honestly. So, you know, do whatever you want.
Now, going over to the Boomeranger, this is going to be the best DPS class in the game, up there with Solarion. You could farm with him, but there's other classes that are faster than him, but you can easily do ships, delves, or any boss fights. You're able to equip a bow or a melee weapon on him, so if you do go with a bow, you can get the blast bow ring effect and shred any enemy. Or you can go with the melee and do this very cool pull ability. Either way, you can use him in just about anywhere. The main thing with him is that you want to throw your boomerang, which is this ability here. The bow also has a similar one, but they do the same thing pretty much. I'll throw up some screenshots here on the screen so you can see what kind of buffs that it gives you. And the thing with Boomeranger is that you can use your ultimate and you can either one-shot something, you're just going to do a ton of damage either way. So keep swinging, keep throwing your minions, spam your ultimate. It's basically just going to be a random effect, and one of those effects can do a ton of damage to the bosses. So that's why he's up there in terms of the top DPS classes. In terms of which one to use, either the bow or the melee, I prefer the melee. I know the bow is better for DPS, but with a game like Trove, not all of your shots are going to register. Sometimes it's just going to be too much for the game to handle. The melee is just more consistent. I'm going to ignore the top 2 because every class is going to have this. It's all going to be the same things. Chaos cores are from chaos chests. There are other various items. You can check out my Chaos Core guide video on how to get them, because you can also loot collect Scout Saucers or Chaos Hounds, but ideally you can get them from Chaos Chests. And basically every resources to craft any of these classes, apart from the newer ones, you can get a bunch of the resources from Chaos Chests as well. And then with Flux, I already have Flux guides, so we don't have to go over that. Basically just loot collect any gear from any dungeons that you do, and you'll get just enough Flux. It's really not that bad. It's only 1,000. You can get that very, very easily. Now for Primordial Flames, you want to go over to the Dragonfire Peaks. You can find them in other biomes as well, but basically this is what it's going to look like. You'll want to mine that, and it's not going to take you too much. They don't really come in a huge group. You're just going to get a little bit each time, but it's not going to take you that long to get 10, so don't worry about that too much. There looks like there's already a lot around. And then moving over to Golden Soul, you just need 1. You're going to find them in just about anywhere. And you can find them with other groups of ore, so this one's with Shapestone, just mine that. And the idea with this one, I went over to D15, so it's going to be this area, but you can find them in literally everywhere. You can just go to Candoria. They have a bunch of ore in Candoria, so you can try to find it there. You can go to Fae Forest, try to find it there. And you want to just look for a bunch of ores, just like I did here. And you can just try to find it together with one of those.
The Boomeranger, I have stability. I don't use this guy for farming very much. He's a very all-around, the most meta class in the game. Basically everyone uses Boomeranger. I have him for deep delves. I have him for some farming stuff. If I want to do D15, for example, then I use him. I use Freerange on him personally just because I use him for farming. If I wanted to use him for delve bosses, I'd slap on the Zephyr rune here. And for the ally, I use Scorpius, of course. Once again, as close, because I use Berserk Battler, I get 40% extra. Just kind of stick with a little bit above 260. Boomeranger is like perfect for that, because it allows me to go just over 260%. So when I actually attack stuff, it will make me go up to 307%. Stability, and physical damage on my second stat. And the other one is critical damage on all the ones. Max Coef went for on this guy. I could slap on 2 pieces of movement speed on this guy. And for my banner, I use attack speed, because it allows me to go just over the limit here. For the ring effects, there's actually a lot of ring effects you can use for this guy. You can use Cyclone, Blast Bow, and Overstuffed Urn. I have one for all of them. This is my Cyclone one, this is my Blast Bow one, and this is my Overstuffed Urn one. For team play, you would use Overstuffed Urn, because all your friends would be spamming 2, which is good. It makes the delay here less when you have a bunch of people spamming them. That would be the most meta in the game, to like do a Levi, just everyone just be on Boomer, just spam, right? So that's that. And Cyclone is good for clearing stuff, I'd say. It pulls enemies towards you. It's really good for D15 5 stars and whatnot. It's really good for that. Blast Bow is good for you can use them as an Ice Age, kind of, in a way, where it's a burst of damage on all. Now, the reason I don't personally want to use Blast Bow that much is because it disconnects you quite a lot when you just use him regularly. So Yeah, I don't know. The server can't handle the amount of particles or whatever. I don't know what it is, but all the ring effects are good, and it depends on the situation. Usually, I'd use Always Up to Earn for my purpose, but if you want to farm, use Cyclone. Emblems, I use these chromatic and stuff. For the gem forge here, once again, Pyrodisc, Explosive Epilogue, and I'll just skim through them real quick. It's 90414 once again. That's what I use. Checking over to here, we can see that the most ideal is 315. Still, you're never gonna notice a difference here. If you just attack stuff, you're not gonna notice the difference. Like, it's just not gonna happen.
Next up we got Bard, and he is an interesting class. You either love him or you hate him. He's very different from all the classes we currently have in the game at the time you're recording this. You have to use his ultimate constantly, and you basically have to play a little minigame while you're playing Trove. If you play Bard for a while, you'll get used to it, so you won't have to keep looking down as much, and you can focus on farming. And speaking of farming, that's what this class is. You can use him in delves or casual farming for gem boxes. He's a support class and a DPS at the same time, but he also just doesn't compete that well with the other classes that we have. And the main thing with him is just make sure to keep his buffs active at all times by filling up the bar at the bottom and pressing your ultimate a few times to receive all those buffs. Each color represents a different buff. A couple things to note: when you see purple, press your ultimate and your bar will go up one. Bard has 3 stages with his buffs, and you can tell because of the bar on the bottom the size increases. When you're farming, you can go for the red one, which is the attack buff, the green one for speed, or you can just go for all the buffs. I'll show you a screenshot of what they all do. These are the buffs without the class gem, and then with the class gem, this is what we have over here. Alrighty, in order to craft Bard, we need a few things. So starting things off with sentient shards, we go over here to the overclock resistors workbench. You can find one of these in Neon City. If you go to the Luminopolis area, you can go to the outposts over there and go to this bench specifically, or if your club has one, let me know if you do want to join Laezaria. We do have one over here. We just take the red portal and then come up to the top over here. So there's a couple things in here. There is a Sentient Shards Tome over here, which gives you 5 a week. And if you're not sure how to get these Shaper Stars, you want to craft the Shaper Star key from the Shadowy Market over in the Shadow Tower area. You craft the key there, you go over to the Shores of Everdark, and just like how you would with your class gem, use the key to open up the chest. And this time you'd want to go to the highest possible Uber to get the most amount of the Shaper's stars. And with that you can get the tome. And another thing is the beacons. So if you host a beacon, whenever you see the rampage attack, you see the quest on the right side, what you could do is you can host beacons for yourself. So there's 3 different options. I go with the middle one because that's the best option. I'm sure down the line or in the future or whatever the case may be, other options might be better. But for now, it's this one. What you want to do is craft 6 of these, and whenever it is a rampage, you can go to whatever club that you're in. You can throw them in that club and you can host it there. You cannot throw these in any other place. You can't throw them at the hub. You can't throw them in adventure worlds. It has to be a club that you're a part of. And if you do host one, I recommend finding like a little area kind of like this, maybe a little bit smaller and a little bit deeper. Something like that, and slowly throw them into the pit. If you throw them too fast, there's a good chance that it might glitch out and you'll throw 5 instead of 6 that you crafted, so it'll just waste one for you. So just throw them one at a time, just carefully, and you'll get these 6 sentient shards just by hosting, which is pretty cool. Whereas if you just joined a beacon, you would just get 1 sentient shard. Moving on to Bound Brilliance, so there is a tome for this. If you go over to the Adventurous Crafting bench, go to Gems. There's the tome over here. It's not too difficult to craft, and you can get 5 a week just from doing this. The other ways is if you go to your contests, you have 3 classes over here that give you 7 each. So you can get 7 for each class that it says, and these will change every week. Just make sure you have these classes so you can actually complete the rewards. And I do have a video talking about the weeklies and how to get the effort points, so you don't have to worry about that. And apart from those 3, there is the Bound Brilliance and Empowered Gems from the bottom sections here. So this is going to be for the highest Paragon level with Neon Ninja. This will also change weekly, and then this one will say the weekly highest Paragon level. So this is basically when XP will come in handy, so you'll want to do a ton of ships. I do have a bunch of XP guides talking about that, so if you are curious about that and you want to check that out, go for it. I just wanted to show you that there is more Bound Brilliance over here as well. Now moving on to the next thing, which is the free range electrolytic crystals. Now there's a tome for this one as well. It's super expensive, and it does give you 1,500 a week, which isn't terrible, but it also isn't good considering you need 26,000. So the only other way is if you go to the marketplace and type in sample book, you might find some of these at a cheaper price and in bulk. But if you can't, you can also type in section. These will be what drops from those sample books. And basically the idea is that you don't have to use the marketplace, by the way. I'll show you in just a second how to get them. You would take the sections to the loot collector. So as you can see, this is what you get from these boxes over here. So you would just loot collect that for the kelp over here. And with the kelp, you want to go over to the hub and go over here to this NPC right over here. And if we take a look at this spot over here, you can convert the kelp into the free range electrolytic crystals. Now, if you do want to farm these more consistently, what you could do is get some of these understack delve gateways. The cool thing about these is that it's going to be understacks every single floor. So once I complete 120, once I go to 121, it'll still be the same biome. At 122, it's going to be the same biome. So it's going to be pretty cool that way. And as you can see, there are some on the marketplace. I don't really entirely know what the difference is between those two portals, but there are two different variations of it. But either way, you want to complete the delve, and when you complete the delve, it's going to be a lot better to do it with alt accounts because you can just trade all of these boxes that you will be getting onto your main account. And if you want a little key with these sample books, so basically if you're farming depths below 99, you're going to get 16 sample books. At depth 100 to 139, you'll get 32 sample books, and at 140 and above, you'll get 64 sample books. So do whichever one you're comfortable with, and you can farm a bunch of those boxes, you can get the sections, and eventually if you loot collect those, you can come over here to convert the kelp into the free range. Next up, we got the crystalline cores. These used to be pretty difficult, but now they're not too bad. So basically, if you go over here to the hub, we have this section over here, and you want to complete this bench, the gear crafting bench. Now, if you completely max it out, get it to 250, you have this section unlocked. If you have a class that's at least 30k power rank, you're going to get guaranteed crystal 4s out of these boxes. And the cool thing about that is that you can loot collect those for a ton of crystalline cores. So if we take a look at this chart, I'll kind of break this down for you. So if we go over to the loot collector section, if we look at crystalline cores, so for crystal 4, if you open it from those boxes, it's going to give you a level 2, sometimes a 3. And with the crystal 4, look at that, you get 90 cores just from one. And say you're 25k power rank, there's a chance you can get crystal 3 or 4. And if we take a look at crystal 3, as you can see, you can get 60 crystalline cores. So you can get a pretty good amount of these cores. Another thing you can do the 5-star dungeons here. You get a bit of a bonus for your first one. It's basically gold, silver, and bronze, the reward. So it goes from 8 crystalline cores all the way down to bronze, which is going to be just these boxes. You'll just be getting one of these. And you can get your crystalline cores from here as well. And that's only going to be from Geode topside. And lastly, we got Bardium. So for Bardium, you'll want to go over to the Geode Sanctuary, and you'll want to go through one of those 3 caves. I personally go through Moonglow Grotto, and as you make your way through the caves, you'll find the Bardium, which looks just like this. And if you're unable to get to tier 5, then you can just buy them from the marketplace.
I have max movement speed because I use this guy for farming, and that's also why I have magic find here as well. So I use this guy for farming, and I went around 300, slightly below it. So I have attack speed on 2 of my pieces. That's what I have. And a magic find for the ring effect. I don't use any ring effects for my bard. I never play bard, and all the ring effects are kind of ass for him, kind of whatever. And for the banner, I use movement speed. For the ally, most ideal would be Orcian. Probably depends on what you're using it for, but for most use cases it would be Orcian, and for you'll probably use Vampirium as well from him. You could use Berserk Battler. It's up to you. If you want max movement speed, then use Orcian. It's as easy as that, right? When I do farm with them, I usually do use Conjurers because it allows me to get more pots.
For Bard, I prefer having the Vial of Unleashed Power because of its effect that it does. It triggers your flasks every time you use your ultimate, so that's why it's really good. And for Bard specifically, you are going to be using your ultimate a lot. So every time you press it, your emblems will activate, which is really cool. So in my instance, I have Zealous and Trailblazing, so I can get the energy back, and then I can also get some movement speed.
Moving over here, it's 315 once again. That's the most ideal. Moving over here, we can see that I use that. This is actually the only class that has Cubic Curtain and not Explosive Epilogue, simply because I never play Bard, honestly. If you wanted to build a better Bard than mine, you could by changing this out to Explosive Epilogue. I just had one of these extras, so I just put it on, right?
Next up, we got Lunar Lancer, now my other least favorite class, but don't let my opinion affect your decision on if you want to play him. But he does go super fast. In order to go fast, get the ring effect Need for Speed, get the Vampirian Vanquisher gem, a speed ally, and a speed banner. Everything's speed pretty much. Like max out speed for the star chart as well. Kill an enemy or defeat a dungeon, activate your flask, hope that power disc procs, and grapple. You'll go zoom in for like 10 seconds, so he goes pretty fast. Another thing to note about his ultimate is that you have these moons around you whenever you use your abilities. If you Lunar Leap and grapple, you can get those moons. In order to use your ultimate, you have to fill up your energy. You can do that by either using your leap, the grapple, and just fighting stuff. Once your energy is at 100, then you can use your ultimate. Now for Lunar Lancer, you want to go over here to the Radiant Ruins because you'll want to get some Radiant Shards. So you could just do the dungeons over there. I'm not going to complete this, but what you want to do is just start this and then you'll see a bunch of these around. So just keep on hitting these as you can see on the bottom right. You're going to get some Radiant Shards for everything you defeat over here. So you are timed, so just be on the lookout for that and just collect as many of those as you can. Another thing you can do is go away from those dungeons and just try to find these little platforms for these specific enemies. They will drop a pretty good amount of the Radiant Shards, and if you're lucky enough they can drop a box, and if you open that box you get 100. Moving over to the Fairy Dust, what you want to do is go over here to the Fae Forest area, and you want to fight Fae enemies. So as you can see, that was a world boss. I just got one from that. You can do dungeons, you can fight Fae enemies. You're not going to get too many, but you do need 8, so it's not that bad. You can buy them from the marketplace, you can get them from chaos chests if you're lucky. Just do a bit of dungeon farming, it won't take you too long to get the 8.
Moving over to my Lunar Lancer here, I use max movement speed as much as I can get anyways. And for the ally, I use Scorpius. Obviously I use Solarions. He doesn't use energy regen, so you don't really want that. But for the ring effect here, you would want Need for Speed. Reason for that is because it's just busted. It allows you to get stupid amounts of speed here, as you can see. The most ideal would be Need for Speed. It makes you allowed to launch, basically. It makes you go zooming when you use your M2 ability. It doesn't work for me for some reason. It's supposed to be like this. Oh, like that, right? You get a bunch of movement speed. I don't know why it isn't doing that, but it's supposed to, so whatever. We can see here that when you use your Lunar Infused Grapple, you gain movement speed buff instead. But it doesn't seem to do that for me. Regardless, for my emblems here, I use Trailblazing because I want max. And I also use Vampirium. Max movement speed. That's what I went for on this guy. Once again, I'm using 414 and I'm using Pyrodisc and Explosive. I'll just skim over them real quick. That's what I use. Most ideal would probably be, once again, 315, I'm guessing. But you're never gonna notice the difference. Like, the difference is around 20. Okay, if you want absolute max, then go for that.
Moving over to the Dino Tamer. Now, this is a pretty fun class. The main thing you want to do with him is keep your ultimate up at all times. You can achieve this by either using the King Cobra Ally or using the Chronomatic emblem. You're somewhat restricted when you're using his ultimate form. Like, you can't use a mount, and when you want a Lasermancy, you'll just hop off your dinosaur. Apart from that, he's a nice speed farming class and does decent damage as well. Just make sure you're careful about when you use your ultimate, because you don't want to glitch out and have it look like you're praying. If you know, you know. If that happens, just swap classes or just relock to fix it. You'll need meteorite fragments, so what you want to do is go over here to the Jurassic Jungle, and in the canopy areas, so in these sub-biome, you'll find the area that goes kind of higher up than all the other areas. That makes no sense, but basically, you'll spawn like down there, for example. You want to find the upper area pretty much that has all of this, and this is your meteorite fragment right here. You just mine that, and there you go. And you'll find them not too often, but they're kind of just scattered all around. So just keep looking around and you can find them there. Next up is Sticky Ichor. You can find those from bugs. Alright, so I just killed a bee over here and that got me a Sticky Ichor. So just keep on fighting those and eventually you'll get one. Ideally you would just buy them from the marketplace or you can get them from your chaos chests. But I think fighting insects or bees is the only other way to get them. Alright, there we go. We just did it again. It's not really super common that you get them from the bees, but I think your best bet is just going to be to buy them. Next up, moving on to Bleached Bones. So if we go over here to Desert area, this isn't the best area, but if you find a dungeon like this, you can find a bunch of Bleached Bone just kind of lying around like that. So you can just mine them here. But ideally, you want to go over here to the Dragonfire Peaks. And you can find a bunch of them, maybe not floating like that, but you can just find a bunch of them around. And they're honestly not too difficult to get, so just keep running around, you'll find a bunch, and that's pretty much it for that.
I have max movement speed, and once again, I use Orkion for this guy, because I like the movement speed on this guy. That's also why I have Vampirian. For the banner, I use movement speed. You could change this out for Trailblazing. The reason I have this is because I want to use my ult more often. Dino Tamer, I'm not too sure what the best ring effect would be. I don't have it personally. But it would be all my dinos, because it spawns 2 dino instead of 1 when you use your 1 ability. Once again, I have... For some reason I have Stinging Curse on this guy. You don't need that. You could change this out for Explosive Epilogue, but that is what I use. I have 90414 on this guy as well. Moving over to the spreadsheet here, we can see that the most ideal would once again be 315. Doesn't really matter once again. Do what you want. When I built this guy, once again, it was best to have 414, so that's what I went with, and I've never changed it since. 15,000 difference, so it's kind of whatever, honestly. So that is my Dino here, and I use him for farming, so I have magic find on him.
Going over to the Gunslinger, now farming with this class is not going to be fun at all. You can still dish out some good damage, and that's pretty much what this class is, a damage dealer. So you can farm 5-star dungeons with him, fight bosses, whether it's a Leviathan or a Delve boss. You could use him in Delves, but there are other classes that are just better than him at that. His damage just doesn't compete that well with Solarion or Boomeranger, but he's not too terrible. You can stay in the air, use your ultimate, and shoot down at the enemies. If they are ranged, they will shoot back at you, and you'll be kind of falling down for like, I don't know, a million years. So if you do decide to play Gunslinger, just take note of that. Next up, we got the Gunslinger, and you're going to want to get some bottles. So for this one, you want to go for Desert Frontier, and you can find a bunch of bottles just kind of hovering around the surface. There's one over there, there's a couple over here. So they're not too difficult to get. You can also find them in the permafrost area, so you can kind of just pick and choose which one you want to go to. And for the bleach bone, I already talked about this a bunch, but go over here to the Dragonfire Peaks, and you'll find a bunch on the surface kind of like this.
Moving over to my Gunslinger build is, I use stability on this guy because I use this guy for bossing. I like to, the classes that I use for bossing and for damage, I have stability on, and I don't want to get knocked around. I have Berserk Battler on this guy, and that allows me to get over 300% when I attack stuff. And for the ability or the ally, I use Story Skyfire. And for the ring effect, you'd use Berserk Slinger. Makes your ult better. High damage output on your ult there, if you use that one. And for the food, you will probably use Zephyr if you want to. I don't really care that much, because I use this guy mostly for, like, when I want to just troll around or whatever. It's not really a meta class, so I don't really use him personally. When I do use him, I use him for bossing, and I will probably change these out for the Zephyr rune. Emblems here, I use Chronomatic, of course, because it allows me to use my 2 ability more often. Moving over to my Gem Forge here, I have once again, I'll just move over them real quick here, but I have once again 90414 on my classes, or on my gems, so that is what I use. The most ideal would probably be 315. Don't know what I'm missing for damage here, but I went with max everything I could. So yeah, that is what I use on my Gunslinger.
Moving over to the Fae Trickster. Now this isn't a popular class at all. I can't even remember the last time I've even seen a Fae main. His in-game mechanics seem kind of fun. It's kind of like playing Tracer from Overwatch. He could be used for damage or farming, mainly farming, but he just doesn't do that well to compete with the other classes. Now don't let what I have to say discourage you from playing this class. You can use your Glitter Bomb ability to avoid the lag and hit multiple enemies, so farming Cursed Skulls or casual farming will work in that sense. Especially if you start doing more damage, then you can actually one-shot those enemies with your Glitter Bomb, whereas if you use your primary fire, then there's a good chance that your shots just won't register. Next up for Fae Trickster, you want to get some fairy dust. So what you want to do is go over here to the Fae Forest world, and you want to fight basically any Fae enemies. So we got this dungeon over here. I'll just defeat the boss, and if we break the chest, as you can see, we got 1 fairy dust. So you can get them randomly from the enemies. You can also just get them from the chest. You don't get that many, so it's not really that worth it. You can just buy them from the marketplace, or you can get them from the chaos chests, but they're not super fun to farm, I can tell you that much. Next up, we got Blink Scroll. So for this one, what you want to do is find recipe dungeons that look just like this, and you can find them in any world apart from Topside. Just go to any adventure world, any of the easy ones that you can comfortably farm. You want to find the recipe dungeon like this. They're going to look a little bit different depending on the world that you're in. And one thing to note is that these enemies are a little bit stronger, so if you're struggling a little bit, these enemies will be a little bit tough. But if you can one-shot, then it's not too bad. You want to break the chest, which is a little bit different than your usual one, and I got fairy dust from that one, but you also get the Fae recipe. What you want to do is take that over to the loot collector, and you can loot collect it for Blink Scrolls. And this works for just about any recipe. If you can craft certain recipes that you know of, or if you drop a bunch of bobble pods and get a bunch of those recipes, or if you already have them, for example, then you can just take them to the loot collector, and then just loot collect them in here for the Blink Scrolls, or you can buy them from the marketplace. Next up, for the diamonds, you want to go back over here to the hub. Your club world might have this, but just in case you don't know what I'm talking about, just go to the hub and then go over to this back corner over here. And if we go over to the back section, we can find the ring crafting bench. And at the top, we can find some diamonds. And I already talked about how to get these resources. You can find this in the Dragonfire Peaks. You can find Shapestone literally anywhere. You can find them mainly in the medieval highlands if you're just farming for Shapestone. You can find a bunch there.
Moving over to my Fae Trickster here, I use this guy mostly for farming. My crit hit is a little bit abnormal on this guy, but I use him for farming. So I have Magic Find. Not currently, because I was testing some other builds, but ideally you would use Magic Find and max movement speed on this guy for farming. Probably not attack speed on these two. But I would go for around this attack speed once again. And for some reason I have Berserk, because I wanted to test him and I want to try another build for bossing. But yeah, for farming purposes, I would probably use Vampirium again because of the extra damage. Berserk Battler is good for this class as well, actually, because, you know, he's not really the best at fast clearing enemies super quickly. Is it really gonna benefit you that much to use Vampirium, as it would probably... But I use Berserk Battler personally. Ring effect, I don't use any ring effect on this guy. It's kinda useless. All of them are kinda ass. I don't use any. For farming, probably use Orkion. That would be like the only one that you would ever use. There's no real reason to use Starry Skyfire unless you want to use your alt more often. You could use that as well. It depends on the situation, right? If you want to use it for bosses, use Starry Skyfire. If you want to use it for Orkion or for farming, use Orkion. Okay, checking the gems here. I have Explosive Epilogue and a Pyrodisc as well on this guy. 414 is the what I have, and it's probably not the most ideal. Once again, it's probably 315. Let's check it out. 315, once again, the difference is like 11,000. You're never gonna notice it. I built this guy, 414. That's just kind of what I went with. So most ideal, 315.
Going over to the Chloromancer. Now, this is going to be your damage dealing class. He's a little scuffed at the moment because he got nerfed twice. He still does decent damage, but it takes a bit of time to set up his plants, which is kind of annoying. Chloro isn't fast at all, so not ideal for farming, but you can use him for anything boss related, like Leviathans, Delves, or anything like that. The main thing with him is you want to set up your plants. You want to use your ultimate and throw your plants across from each other so they don't despawn. You can keep using your Flasks to activate your Chronomatic emblem to reduce your cooldowns, and you'll have to use that a couple times because, like I said, he got nerfed, unfortunately, so it takes a little bit to set up his plants. He does do a ton of damage, but it's just awkward to set up. And the only thing I'll say is just make sure to shoot in between your plant throws just so you can keep your Berserk Battler up. We're going to start things off with Sunlight Bulbs. So for Sunlight Bulbs, you want to go over here to Medieval Highlands, or basically any place that has this specific biome, the Peaceful Hills biome. So as you can see, if we go over here in this area, it's going to have, you'll see a bunch of these around. It's not like a dungeon or anything. You can kind of just collect them, you can shoot them, you can use your mount, hop over them just like that, and you can collect a bunch of Sunlight Bulbs that way. And for whatever reason, if you can't make it to Medieval Highlands, you can definitely make it over to the tutorial. Just do /tutorial, head over there, and you can find Sunlight Bulbs around the spawn area. Now for Mushroom Trunks, I usually just go to Crisvale to farm them. You can also farm them in Permafrost, and it basically just looks like this over here. So just mine that, and you get one mushroom chunk. They don't come in a huge group or anything like that. You can also find them in the Medieval Highlands area, so just look around and you'll find them there. Just don't get confused with like the actual mushrooms compared to the mushrooms themselves like this. And that actually brings us to the next one, which is Enchanted Wood. So you'll find them in this biome as well, Crisvale. And you can also find them in the Fae Forest area. So as you can see, Enchanted Wood here. And then if we go this way, there's a bunch of Enchanted Wood. So just keep looking around and you'll find a bunch of those.
I use this guy for bossing. He's really good for bossing. So I have stability on both my pieces and attack speed up to less than 300% because my Berserk Battler will carry the rest of that for me. And I use Starry Skyfire. It allows me to use my abilities more often, which is good. For the ring effects, I don't have it personally just because I don't really use Chloromancer for that purpose. But there's two they would want. We can check it out here. It's either Weird Growth or Gatling. For damage, most damage, you'd probably use Gatling. Chloromancer used to be the best class in the game for boss damage. It still is really good for dealing a lot of damage if you get lucky with your Gatling ability here. The Weird Growth is good for more consistency, but I use Chronomatic and I use Arcane.
For the ally, you're probably going to use Starry Skyfire. You could also use Orkion, but you're probably not going to use him for movement speed. And even if you do, you could use King Koba. That'll reduce your cooldowns if you defeat nearby enemies, but at the same time, I can't really see you guys using that because there isn't going to be many situations where that's going to come in handy since you are going to be using Chloro for bosses. So I would just stick with this one.
And probably for bosses, you'd use a different food. You wouldn't use Freerange, but that's what I use personally. So at the Gem Forge, I use Berserk Battler, and let's move over them real quick. Once again, 90414. Most ideal is 315.
Next up, we got the Neon Ninja. So this is going to be a very popular class that everyone plays. He's a good farming class, and I don't blame all these people for playing him because he actually is really fun. He's pretty much a ninja. You backflip to gain movement speed. You can even keep spamming your backflip over and over to go even faster, but you just can't really see behind you. The main thing you want to do with him is attack enemies a little bit to get those rings around you, and once you get all three, use your backflip. You can wait a couple seconds, not too long, and then just use your primary fire to shoot out a shuriken. And then if you have your clash gem, it'll just be a little bit bigger and deal more damage. And speaking of damage, Neon Ninja isn't really the best at that, so he's not going to be that good at farming Levi's or Delve bosses. His ultimate is ranged, which is cool, but it's just not going to deal that much damage, so he's mainly just going to be your farming class. If you do want to, you can use him in ships, you can use him in Delves, and just casual farming. You want to fight some robotic enemies to get these robo salvages. So I just did a dungeon over here, and as you can see, I got a plasmium and a robo salvage. It's not going to be the best method, but that is a method. The other method is getting the tome, which will be right over here. So you get 15. So you can actually repeat this over and over. And if you do that, you can get to 500 pretty easily. It is 15. It'll take a bit of time, but it's not as bad compared to the other things you'll have to farm for in this game. And if you're not sure where to craft it, go over here to the hub, go to the back side. And if you go to the rune crafting bench, you can find it over here in the rune carver area. But the weird thing about this is that you need robo salvage, so the 500 you get for the tome, you may as well just use for Neon Ninja, or if you just want to get the tome for consistency purposes, then you can just do that as well. I guess there's also one on the market, so you could go for that one, or you can just buy the robo salvage on the market. And then for the diamonds, we talked about this already, but go over here to the ring crafting bench. There's some diamonds here. Primordial Flames you can find in Dragonfire Peaks, which is this place here. And then Shapestone you can find anywhere, just go to Medieval Highlands, you can farm a bunch there. Then next up for the Golden Soul, you can find this in just about anywhere, not anywhere completely. I usually find them in Uber 1 or higher, and by Uber 1 I mean just take the difficulty and subtract it by 3. So this is D4, which would be Uber 1. This is just like the old method, now this is the new method. So D4, this is D5. I went to Candoria, I just found mine over here. So as you can see, it's usually with ore. They are kind of hard to find, but you have to keep on looking through a bunch of the veins. And if you're lucky, they're going to appear with it. If not, then you just have to kind of keep looking around. But you can find them in Fae Forest, you can find them in Candoria, you can even find them in D15.
I have kind of the same setup for farming. So I have attack speed less than 300 just because I wanted max movement speed. You could get slightly more movement speed if you changed out critical damage, which you would probably want it to do for this. You could also get away with changing this to attack speed, your banner here. But yeah, the reason my sword is, ideally if you wanted to use this guy for farming, you'd put magic find instead of stability on your sword here. Now the reason I have stability here is because I don't have a sword for Boomer really that's upgraded, so I just upgrade this guy, and I can kind of, when I want to use Boomeranger sword, I just kind of swap this guy or the sword over to Boomeranger. So that's why I have it as it is, because it kind of functions as both ways, right? So that's why I have that. For the ring effect, you'd use a recharge, no questions about it. Recharge is really good. Recharge makes it so that you get your energy back when you dodge. It's really good for that. So yeah, that would be what you want to use. As you can see, I just got my energy back. It's really good for farming. It's a really fast class, right? You would want to put max movement speed, and that's also why I have Vampirium, is because I use this guy for farming. So that's what I use. But Scorpius is what you want to use for the ally, and the banner is movement speed. Max movement speed is what you want. For some reason, I haven't gotten around to change the head here, but yeah, max movement speed is what you would want. And for the gems, I use Pyrodisc and Explosive Epilogue. I'll just move over them real quickly. 90414. Once again, the most ideal would be 315. Check in the spreadsheet here. Neon Ninja, which would be 315.
Now, going over to Vanguard, this is one of my least favorite classes, but don't let my opinion affect your decision on if you want to play him. He's a farming class with not the biggest damage output compared to Boomeranger or Solarion, but if you're trying to casually farm gem boxes or delves, then Vanguard can do that. He's a speedy class that can get the job done. I would just stick with using his punching ability if you want to farm. And if you want to fight bosses, then swap to your range mode. Just make sure you activate your Force Flash ability that not only gives you movement speed, but also damage reduction. And because of that, you can pair it with the Path Painter and Delves to go super fast. Now, next up we got the Vanguard. So in order to craft them, you're going to need a coded message. So if you go over here to the Resistor's Workbench, you can find one of these in Neon City if you go to the sub-biome Luminopolis. Or if your club has this, I know Laezaria does, you want to invite, let me know. So we can start over here with the coded message. Plasmium, Robo Salvage. You can get these by defeating dungeons. You can also get them from tomes. Here we got the Plasmium tome, and then here we got the Robo Salvage tome. And if we go over here to the rune crafting bench, the rune carver area will have the Robo Salvage. Then over here in this bench, if we go over here to tomes, you can find that over here. I feel like a broken record at this point. I already talked about how to get all these. For plasma, you have to get a plasma sponge and throw them into the liquid in Neon City. So go ahead and go to the gardening bench. In the enthusiast tab, we can find the plasma sponges. If you craft them, it'll go into your inventory. Just drag them into your hotbar. Head over to Neon City. Find plasma, just any of the liquids in that area, and you can collect the plasma that way. You can also get the plasmium from the Neon City scrap cases. So if you do beacons, if you don't know what a beacon is, basically for rampages, if you find somebody hosting them, or if you farm in Neon City, eventually you'll get these boxes over here, and you can get the plasmium from there as well. And in order to craft this, you'll also need the decoder ring, and that's going to be this over here. There are tomes for these things over here, basically in this section down here. There's a tome for the memory matrix, as well as the charged circuits over here. Next up, the plain metal ring. You can get that from the ring crafting bench, as it says over there, and that's all the stuff you need for the coded message. And then for the intriguing kernel map, you basically want to get the same resources. Logic loops, there's the tome for it over here. Chaos cores you get from chaos chests, and when you're able to craft that, you want to go over here for Vanguard, and you'll need sentient shards. Now you do need 60. It's going to take you a while, so whenever you do see rampages, you could just host them, so you can craft like this thing, for example. This will get you sentient shards. It'll give you 6 because that's how many you have to do for the quest. You can only do it whenever the quest is active, so you can do it multiple times in a day if there's multiple rampages. And when you do craft them, just make sure you have a designated area in one of the clubs that you're in. It has to be in a club that you're in. You can't throw them in the hub, you can't throw them in the adventure worlds. So you can invite a bunch of people and just make sure they're in a controlled area just so they don't get too hectic and just kind of run crazy going everywhere. And if you threw all 6 of those, then you can get your sentient shards, 6 of them. And then there's also a tome you can complete once a week, which will get you 6. And that is how you craft the Vanguard. It's pretty tricky. You can also just buy the Sweet 16 pack. I don't have it in here because I already have it, but Vanguard is included in that. If you decide to spend money on the game, then that is an option.
I use this guy for farming, so it's Vampirium. And speed farming, you'd use Trailblazing. Silius is good for spamming your 2 ability or M2 ability. It's really, really quick. You can just spam it like this if you want a lot of damage output. Ring effect, there's no real ring effect that's super good for Vanguardian. If you would go your ranged mode, you would use a ring effect called combo, which makes it so that your enemies takes, or when you use your M2 ability on the enemies, they get a 5% debuff. Similar to how when you are in melee mode and you use your M2, the enemies that you attack gets a 5% debuff effect as well from all damage taken. So it's a good support class. Kind of. Interestingly, you can actually use your M2 on your melee and also use your another guy on M2 on this guy, and you would get 10% damage output. This is what I use for this guy. I use 90414 once again, Pyrodisc and Explosive Epilogue, and 315 once again.
Now going over to the Pirate Captain. This is a class that not many people play. He's pretty underrated. He's really good for quick burst DPS damage and also the best support class in the game, especially with the ring effect of Vast D, because whenever you auto attack, you'll be doing 15% more damage. It's a debuff on the boss that you're fighting, meaning everyone around you will also be doing a ton more damage. It's a little something that not many people knew about, and in order to play this class, just make sure you have that ring effect, use your ultimate through your turrets, and keep up your primary fire. Now next up we got the Pirate Captain. So for the golden seashells, I went to the Novice World Medieval Highlands, and once you go here, there's a bunch of water. You want to look for this steering wheel looking thing, and for golden seashells, you can get them by completing the dungeons, or you can just look for these little loot things. I don't really know what to call these, but just break that. As you can see, I got 5 from it. So you can kind of keep on exploring the water. You can see if you can find any. As you can see, there's another one over there, but that's for Flux. You don't really get that many from these. Next up, we have the Ancient Scale, so you can just buy that one on the marketplace, or you can just farm it. So basically what you want to do is go over here to the fishing area. Just go over here to the downstairs area. But what you want to do is go over here to the Nautical Assembler, and you have to get fishing lures. Now you could just use this one. It just takes 20 flux. So at the moment this is kind of green because of the event that's going on right now. But if you come back here to the upper area, we have some water. And what you want to do is equip the lure. Otherwise you're just going to fish up ancient boots. And you can just fish in here. It is better to do this on a Tuesday because it'll be a little bit faster since it's bonus for the fishing day. And eventually you can get a rare fish from there. And once you do, you take it over here to the loot collector. and you'll just loot collect it for the ancient scale. If you don't have a fishing pole, by the way, you want to go over here to Saltwater Sam and craft a basic fishing pole for 50 flux.
The most ideal would be to use this guy, probably not for farming because he's not that fast. He doesn't have any speed increase. I use this guy for bossing. He's a very strong guy. That deals a lot of damage. So I have stability on all my pieces here, and I have movement speed when my attack speed goes slightly below 300%. Now, Berserk Battler for this guy, because I use this guy for bossing, right? The very interesting thing with this guy is he's actually very surprisingly strong, especially if you count in the ring effect here. You would want to use Avast Yi. It's the best support class in the game, right? Because it makes it so that all damage taken when you use your auto attack is 15% more. Right, is a 15% debuff on the mob or the enemy that you attack. So if you could sit on a boss and you attack it, then every attack that goes to that boss will be 15% increased, right? So it's a really good support class. It's the best support class in the game, at least for damage output. So if you use this guy on a Leviathan or a boss or whatever, use Avast Yi. Most people don't know that, so that's what I use. And for the ally, I use Starry Skyfire. It allows me to use more of these abilities. For some reason, I have physical damage on this guy. You would probably not want physical damage. You would most likely change it for magic damage. I don't know, it's a little oopsie on my end. I haven't changed that. My bad. Let me just skim over the gems here quick. 90414, moving over to here. We can see that the max that you would want would be actually 414 this time. Very surprising. So I guess 414 for the Boomeranger or for the Pirate Captain. Now, if you do decide to go 315 for all of your classes, then you wouldn't really miss out on that much. Like you can see here, it's like what 1.5k coefficient, so it's you're not a difference. So do what you want.
And last but not least, we got the Knight, and this is also a class that not many people play, but he's a good farming class. You can go dungeon to dungeon very easily without your class gem. You can fly across with some good movement speed. Just make sure to get this ring effect for him, and you'll need a ton of energy. So this is where the Zealous emblem will come in handy. So every time you flask, you can activate that emblem effect, and without proccing anything, Knight can move pretty fast without his class gem, just flying around to the next dungeon. So overall, super good for farming dungeons. And since you can hit multiple enemies at once, you can also use them to farm ships. Now moving on to the Knight, you need mushroom chunks, and I went over here to the Cursed Vale area, and as you can see, you want to look for those little mushrooms right there. You can find them in a few different adventure worlds. I know Permafrost also has them. So just keep looking around and you'll find a bunch of those. And you can also find them in the Medieval Highlands area, so just make sure to look around for these and not the ones that actually look like mushrooms, because they will attack you. And then going over to the Enchanted Wood, go over here to the Fae Forest. You'll find the wood just lying around in a bunch of different places. So as you can see, we got some over here. Just keep mining them and eventually you'll get to 20.
I love the Knight. I have on my Knight, I use this guy for farming, so I have max movement speed. That's as much as I can get anyways. Movement speed on my banner and everything. The Knight can actually be really fast if you use Overcharge. That allows you to go zooming when you use your one ability. This is actually the only class in the game where I don't use the class gem. You could use it if you want to. It's good to have an extra if you like a Knight main, right? But yeah, I don't use it personally. Just because of my one ability here, I can go forward. I like the fact that I can go forward instead of being stuck. So you would use Overcharge. Most likely, if you do main Knight, you would probably use a class gem, just because of the fact that even though the one ability doesn't take you forward, it will still be faster to like activate your Overcharge ability. So yeah, that is what I use. And I use Scorpius, of course, right? Farming. And let's check out the gems here. I use once again 90414, and I have Stinging Curse here instead of the class gem. So I use Stinging Curse, Explosive Epilogue, and Pyrodusk. You could change this out for Berserk Battler, but if you want max movement speed, then go for... Also, if you do use this guy for farming, you would probably use Trailblazing instead of Chronomatic. I'm not sure why I have Chronomatic actually. Use Trailblazing.
So for my version of the star chart, I have this over here. I have the physical damage route over here. I have the light stuff, and then I have the damage portion on this area. You could swap off the magic damage for something else. You could just swap everything entirely if you don't like this style. The other option would be going for Flasks, so if you go to the bottom left section, you can go for the Flask portion. I just play physical damage classes because that's just the meta. I like playing the meta classes, so I just have a physical damage route, and then you can just switch the magic damage for something else if you want to. So that's what I have. Let's go over to what Sqze has.
Starting with the story chart here, we can see that I went for physical damage. I've been using this since day one, and in my opinion, it's like the most meta you can do. You could change these two out, these magic damage ones, for this guy, and either one of these, depending on what you need here. The reason I use this is because the most meta classes in the game is Boomeranger and Solarion for bossing. So if you want more damage than in those regards, then you can use that. So yeah, that's pretty much my star chart. Moving back over to you, Ashley. Thank you.
Alrighty, I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. It is a really long one, like I mentioned in the intro, and massive shoutouts to Sqze for actually showing you guys how to do these builds and talking about each class, like what they're used for and stuff like that. I know I talked about that a little bit for how to play the class, but Sqze knows all the technical stuff and knows how to play them better than me. So massive shoutouts to Sqze. Be sure to show him some love if you guys see him around. And if you guys do ever want to check him out, he sometimes does stream, so I'll leave a link to his Twitch channel in the description down below. And if you guys do have questions about anything in this video, then drop it down in the comments down below and I'll be sure to answer that for you. It took me a while to put this all together. It ended up being over an hour, but I hope that all of this information was helpful to you guys. There was a lot to go over for every single class, and I thought it would be kind of lame to just make one video for each little thing, so I just wanted to combine everything together. So I provided timestamps for everything as well. And this video should be completely up to date unless they rework a class or something dramatically changes, like if they changed light completely or if they made some other stat more viable than light or something like that. So until that day comes, this will be the best guide for 2024. And if you're watching this in 2025, this will also be a really good guide unless something changes. And if they do add another class, I'll just make a separate video for that class, so it'll be simple, straight to the point. And yeah, I think that's all I wanted to talk about. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed. Drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, or if you find yourself coming back. And like always, thank you all so much for listening, watching, viewing, and subscribing, and I will talk to you all later.